Okay, once again, hi everybody. We got a kind of sharing issue. Sorry for making you wait. But today we are going to talk about Russia as the second webinar of our global series. Thank you for attending, first of all. And also I would like to thank my colleagues, Stans and Anna, for their support because they are going to share a great know-how with us about their country and their country dynamics. Unfortunately, there's a sharing issue and somebody else is going to share the deck. Stans, good luck to you. It will be Gülşah, who is sharing her screen, but we will keep it aligned, I guess. I hope so. I'm giving the word to you, guys. Thank you very much once again.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Yasmin. So the most popular word today will be next slide, please.
Definitely. Perhaps you can talk about yourselves while Gülşah is sharing her screen. Yes.
Yeah, now we can see, and actually I see that it is in the mode which allows everyone to skip some slides. So please don't do that. Please stay with us all the time, and let us present ourselves. Stas?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anna. So basically today you will see some sort of ice and cold because I have purely quantitative background and also quite a great experience in marketing research. And especially international one. For instance, right now I am presenting from Philippines, from Manila, set up in Hero project for one of our important clients, and Anna has a purely qualitative background.
Yeah, for all 20 years I'm working purely like a qualitative person. So I will provide you with a deep dive into the Russian soul. I will humanize all the data which Stas will show and will present it together to make it really vivid and plenty of colors. Yes.
Okay, and actually to be familiar with any of countries you would like, the best thing you can start with is to become familiar with the geography. And as many of you may know, Russia is actually the biggest country. But the bad news for those who live in Russia is that not in every place of this big country it's comfortable to live. And as you can see at this very map, actually the good places are located only in western and southwestern parts of this big country. And next slide. And that also explains well why the most part of Russian population lives in these very regions. So basically, despite the hugeness of Russia, the most part of Russians are living quite compact. And this is good for manufacturers and for brands because of many reasons. First of all, you do not need to build a distribution through all this huge piece of soil. And the same is true for communication and other marketing aspects. Next one. Yeah. And another good news that actually there are a lot of big cities in Russia, which also simplifies building business there. And besides, once again, most of them are located quite compactly. Indeed, in terms of big Russia, they are located quite in a compact area in the European part and very close to the western border. Okay. So, yeah, we have some animation as well. So push a button. Okay, so a couple of words about Russians themselves, as far as we have become a bit more familiar with the geography and population concentration aspect. So population of Russia itself becomes elder. So as you can see of this chart, the vast majority of people living in Russia nowadays are aged 35 plus years. But at the same time, press please. Yeah. usually females are living longer, and we are happy about this. But in case of Russia, we are still well balanced in terms of gender, so we are almost 50-50. And another good news is that in Russia we have a really high employment level, so almost all Russians are employed, and it's also supported by the fact that Russia is actually the second in terms of labor migrants, so it goes right after the United States on this indicator. So we are really struggling for labor forces, and we have salaries, we have income, which allows us to be a payable consumers. And to conclude on at this slide, the level of internet and technological penetration is also quite high, so it allows manufacturers and brands to penetrate population easily via social media, via various brand sites and internet media platforms. Okay, next slide.
I will put it on my microphone here, and I will add here that there is regarding the internet. While you are, please don't read this chart yet. That actually people are saying that if you are not present on the internet, then you are just not present at all. So please be aware that you should definitely somehow represent yourself via social media and via websites, because first thing that people will do when they hear your brand, they will call it Google it, although in Russia we have our own search engine Yandex. So we will call for voice assistant Alisa, find it in the internet. Next chart, please. So I will jump in here and I will tell you a little bit more about the complexity of the Russian soul. And a lot of things were said that Russian soul is really very dual. And I put a quote of Russian playwright and short story writer Anton Pavlovich Chekhov, who is considered to be one of the greatest writers of all time. And he put this dichotomy of the Russian soul in this short phrase: "What a fine day! Cannot choose whether to drink tea or to hang oneself, myself." And indeed, Russians are very dualistic by their nature. And it's obvious not only for philosophers like Berdyaev, but also for market researchers. And I will share some observations about Russian women and Russian men, which you need to be aware of and keep in mind while you develop products and communication for Russian market. Why so? Because if you know these contradictions, if you know the duality, then you will be able to create products that will appeal both to the real self of people and also to their projected self. And that provides you with a win-win strategy. And let's start with women. Let's start with females. Indeed, it means to face a lot of contradiction on a daily basis. We put 7 life contradictions which Russian women face. We put them on chart, but I would not put a lot of and explain in details every of them, because we will definitely share the slides with you. You will have this presentation. You will be able to go through it and read it carefully. I will probably present just a couple of them. So next chart, please. First one on the next chart, I know that I'm strong. Previous one, please. No, too far. Oh, wow. We're looking further, but that's fine. So I need the one with the first contradiction. Just one chart. I know that I'm strong and responsible, but it is the ability to feel and be weak that makes me a real woman. And why it is so? Because women in Russian culture, they always been a strong figure who can do anything, and it has a historical background, of course, because we faced a lot of wars, and wars took away a lot of men. And women are always ones who are in charge. But at the same time, Soviet culture, it was promoting equal gender abilities and separation of working duties. So women were really employed. They were working a lot, but still they continued to be responsible for the household, and they provided all the necessary things for their family. And even modern world didn't change the situation. Although there are a lot of things which are set right now that you can build your career, you can focus on your life priorities, still you have to be responsible for your own family. You still have to clean, to cook, to raise your kids, etc., etc. And supportive services which are available, like babysitters, like home cleaners, it is quite widespread in Russia, which is much better in terms of income, but in other cities, people cannot afford it quite often. So any claims which promote and pronounce female power wouldn't be welcomed across Russian women. They would rather feel themselves like ones who are cared for, like ones who are allowed to be weak. And as far as we're sitting on the second contradiction, I want to enjoy my life and to do what I really love to do, but I don't know how to live for myself and what I can do for my pleasure. This is also very popular among younger generations right now, because there are a lot of bloggers, a lot of things are said on social media that you should unleash your power, you should focus on yourself, you should find your own hobby, you should really reveal your potential to the fullest. But still, at the same time, it's quite challenging for women to really understand what do they fond of doing, because quite often they simply don't have time to focus on their real needs, to connect with their deep desires. And finally, everything what they choose to do is just to relax, to sleep, or at the best, to do some beauty routines. So there are some contradictions about women. Let's go further and speak about men. What do we have here? Also in between. And men are in between traditional and modern masculinity. Let's go on the next chart, please. On the one hand, we have a image of a breadwinner, of the traditional Russian man who is responsible for the family, who can earn money, who is always right, for example, who has some brutal features in his way of behaving and even in the way he looks. But also, we are living in a post-industrial society. We don't have to took our axe and go into forest and hunt, etc., etc. So these brutal features are also becoming less, not only pronounced, but also less important in the modern living. So we have kind of aspirational modern male image who is self-actualizing, who is multitasker. And please go on the next chart. It also puts a pressure on male, because they are also feeling like they are trapped in some mix of contradictions, because on one hand they are expected and they demonstrate outside some self-confidence, maybe on the next chart, some leadership, but still deep inside they can be shy, they can be self-doubting, they can be reflexive, and the possibility to be reflective is a traditional feature of the Russian soul. And they are required, next chart please, they are required to have purpose, to strive for something, but quite often they really have low ambitions, and it is also quite a common image of the husband on a couch who doesn't want anything and who doesn't strive for anything, and he's really fine with the way of life he's living right now and doesn't striving for something more. So indeed, please keep in mind that you should also know about these contradictions, and you should always choose the correct message when you are talking to Russian audience. And on the next chart, we
may
also
I ask a question, Anna, by the way?
Sure.
If, for example, some brand is like marketing over there in your market, doing some activities, so they have to choose one extent because there are too many contradictions you are saying and dualities. So if that part or that part, it can be in the middle.
Well, in the middle, mostly would be for no one, you know.
Yeah, it's vanishing positioning actually.
Yeah, you will hit no one actually if you just decide to be in the middle. So it's better rather to provoke if you're brave enough. It will definitely evoke good reaction, and you would be high on word of mouth. Or you just need to be aware and just to speak politely, like accepting that yes, we are like that, and that's fine. We are allowed to do that, and we are allowed to be like that. So, you know, right now, vulnerability and being able to demonstrate your weaknesses also is very resonant, I think, in the
Yeah, and it's definitely depend on generation to which you are going to address your communication. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I put some words about Zoomers also here. And also we'll be happy to suggest that you have a deeper look at our special edition of Trend Vision for this year, because it was all focused on Zoomers. We will gladly share, and Yasemin will help you to find it and look through it and read their values. Yeah, read their ways of choosing, behaving, etc. But just three important things is that value of the family is really falling, although the value of relationship, friendly relationship, is really growing, and still people, Zoomers, are thinking that they will have family at one point of the time, but it is less important like it was before. It's just a very delayed position, I think. Second thing is also due to social media and the ability to express yourself in social networks. Appearance becomes a social position. They're very beautiful. They're very attractive. They're very focused on the way they look, and it's equally for all regions. Because for them it's like it's even not about attracting the partners. It's rather like I stand for that. I respect myself. I want to look like that. And I even probably don't feel a pressure, because it's probably even some kind of pleasure which I found in taking care about the way I look. And also mental health. Mental health is a topic number one, probably, of course, due to circumstances, of course, due to pressure which we are facing right now. But it has been growing already. So after the years of almost 2 years of COVID pressure, people were also really depressed with the isolation, with this sense of being deprived of their own favorite vacations and relaxations. So right now it's quite a norm to address a therapist and to take care, to be about your mental well-being. No, not a stigma anymore. And as we started to speak about what is happening right now, there is a meme that literally can be read like long-term planning in 2022 to be like plan your evening in the morning. And also we are joking sometimes that the horizon is about 15 minutes long, not longer, because you cannot plan for anything right now in Russia. But also it results in Russian dualism, as we said, that people are really in between two opposite ways of behaving, rather to spend and to live like tomorrow never comes, or to save and do not overspend and be very savvy about your shopping, about your new things, about durables, and we will cover it a little bit in details later on also. Stas?
Yeah, next slide,
not
please.
Stas, yes. Next Stas, please. Sorry, it's not for you.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. So yeah, and approaching consumers and the general people feelings and the economic situation, we have some interesting figures to share with you. So basically, we are measuring attitude or expectations towards economic situation in Russia, which is, i.e., a personal welfare for the very long period of time. And as you can see on this very chart, the orange line stands for become worse, and blue ones stands for become better. And as you can see, at the very beginning of 2022, we registered the most significant spike of worsening expectation. And it's really stronger than we had during COVID, than we had during crisis of 2014, when prices for oil went down significantly, and so on. But on the other hand, we also can see sharp decline, and it's driven by several factors. First of all, it was unexpected for all Russians, but government managed to previous slide, please. Yeah. Government managed to stabilize the situation in terms of exchange rate, and it even become much better. So, for instance, comparing to January nowadays, exchange rate comparing to US dollar, for instance, is 25% better than it was before all of these conflict events and so on, so on. And also we have quite positive forecast on GDP, taking into consideration circumstances, indeed just -2% in ruble. So it's really good, taking into consideration all the sanctions, isolation, and so on, so on. So an economy is really living. And next slide now. Okay. So Anna, I guess you wanted to say a couple of words on Zoomers, if we have not yet covered it before. Yeah, we did. So next slide. Okay.
No. This chart just was to convey that indeed Zoomers are living through the crisis a little bit better. Although that might be a questionable, because probably it's their way of their reflection, probably it's their way of their, it's due to the support which they are receiving. But yeah, indeed, we see that they, answering your question, Yasemin, which you asked me, whether they are willing to live abroad, for example. What we really saw, example right now, Zoomers were the first who were able to change the location. And when there was a lot of pressure in Russia, Zoomers were really exoding quite easily. So not very attached and not very deeply rooted. And changing these locations and living and working from other country can be really a fancy proposition for them. So next chart, please. Yes.
Good. Yeah. And one more interesting indication, which actually conveys my words about situation improving or improvement. So this is data which is reflecting annual spends on advertisement by all players in the market. And as you can see on this chart, we have two types of forecast for 2022 and 2023. Actually, they were given by Russian Association of Advertisers, which actually presumes to mean that they must be more or less sharp and precise. So in the worst case, we expect that I mean, in case of pessimistic forecast, that we will come back to the level of 2020 when we faced COVID, or to 2019, which was actually quite a good year. But optimistic forecast is really optimistic and gets us back to 2021, when the highest all-time record was set. So basically, why I decided to draw your attention to this figures is because usually spends on advertising also highlights and shapes business activities, i.e., if business works well, at least in B2C markets, manufacturers and brands spend on advertising more and more. Okay, next slide. And we also faced quite an interesting change in terms of internet landscape for advertisement. So basically, as you may know, some services of Google, like YouTube, and Meta, which is about Facebook, and so on, some others like TikTok, decided to leave Russian market or were banned to post advertising. So it led to some changes in internet advertising landscape, and in both cases, with video and with social, they became less fragmented. So on the one hand, it's more like a monopoly, but on the other, it may help to streamline the communication. I mean, when you have just one door to knock in, it's always better than 3 or 20 doors. So, and in case of video, Yandex and VK takes leading places and positions, while in case of social advertising placement in social media, social network, we actually have only one company, which is like Russian Facebook. And it's the only provider for communication with people right now. Okay. Next slide. Yeah, but when we are talking about information, we should not forget about more daily daily things, daily routine, and what is also important for our life apart from information.
Actually, when we speak about Russian cuisine, there is no Russian cuisine as it is, because it's just a collection of various dishes across all cultures, across all cooking traditions. And but there are still some trends which are very relevant for all regions right now. First of all, there is a high demand for quick and convenient solutions like ready-to-eat or frozen food, or delivery services, which were booming. They started to boom even before COVID, and of course, pandemic has boosted their active development. And it's fair right now, not only about big cities, but also about some small cities, because you can order something decent and good almost everywhere. And still, as we said, the employment is high. Most women are working full day, and so they don't have time to cook. So next thing is healthiness, and I think that it was coming, of course. No, it's still on the previous slide. So after European society started to take care about their health and look what they were eating, Russians followed this trend also. But I would say it's more a declared trend, because being in this situation when you have to choose between really tasty and more healthy, most will opt still for tasty rather than very, very natural. And also demand for various and interesting, as I said, it's already a collection, it's a rich collection of various foods. But if you look at the traditional restaurant or typical even quick service restaurant, you will find that there is plenty of dishes from different regions, different countries. You will, at one menu, you will spot both sushi and pizza and pasta and some kebabs and borscht and pelmeni, so all at once, everything in the same menu. So and indeed, some national cuisines, some national like Balkans, French, Italian, we have a lot of Asian cuisines. They're really popular in Russia right now. And on the next chart, not only about healthy and good food. Maybe.
Yeah. I will comment on this. And it's true that the vast majority of Russians, actually, even despite the all variants with restaurants, Horeca, and so on, they are still preferring to eat at home. So it's a good tradition to come home, make food, share it with your homemates. and it's really somewhere in DNA. So as you can see, at least a half of Russians have not visited any kind of restaurants or cafes over the last 3 months. Another interesting trend is related to food delivery. So as soon as COVID happened, the popularity of food delivery services has risen to the sky, and actually we can saw it in 2020 quite obvious. So each third Russian used food delivery services at least once in a quarter. But after all the restrictions and measures were lifted down, we can see that interest to food delivery is on a slight decline, but still it remains at a very high level, I would say. So for visible part of Russians, it became a habit, and they used to ask for food delivery. Okay, next page. Yeah, but apart from homemade food, restaurants and food delivery, Russians also like to consume something which can make some moments brighter, or just to fill the pause when they are at home, or maybe just bring some kind of indulgency. So, and as you can see, these very slides, the chips are very popular, followed by packed seeds and packed nuts. Packed croutons and nuts. So these are the key snacks for Russians.
And if we go to the next slide, these are just the main trends for this snacking food, mainly for chips, that also naturalness became more important for people, and it's especially good when they think about potato chips and different ways of baking these chips instead of frying, for example. But as we said, still taste rules and also price rules. And Yasemin asked whether Russian consumers are savvy. Do they like to save or to spend? We can see almost everywhere that smart shopping is really important. They rarely want to trade up just for like claimed options, and they need to have very, very strongly articulated and strongly trusted benefits to pay more. Let's go to the next slide. From food to kitchen.
The kitchen. Because if you like to cook, you need some tools to make this cooking process more pleasant, faster, and better. And as this very chart represents, actually Russians have a lot of kitchen aids stuff in their kitchen, like blender, electronic teapots, multi-cooker, electronic meat grinder, and so on. So basically, usual Russian kitchen is more equipped with electronic than the rest home. And next slide.
So this is a mode of air fryers in Turkey now. Most popular new object for the cooking. Do you have this in your kitchens, by the way?
We have ovens.
No. We have.
It's coming, I guess. It's coming.
No, it's not coming. It was already, because we've heard the same trend from our colleagues in another country, and they said, "Wow, it's a big wow right now." It's been here already, because we like to cook shashlik, for example, or something like that. And for example, even on my country house, my relatives have 2 of them already. But yeah. Just maybe to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, and basically, Russians also like to make everything convenient and savvy. Yeah, because as you can see on this chart and on this very graph, there becomes not a lot, but still with each month, quarter, more and more some kind of smart tools which are embedded with Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. We also have a lot of ecosystems and super apps which allow you to do everything, so starting from booking a tickets to cinema and ending to asking voice assistant to play a song or to order you a taxi, which is, by the way, provided by the same services, and so on, so on. So we nowadays have a lot of integrated systems. Yeah, and probably we can skip it due to the sake of time. Yeah, and the vast majority of household appliances are actually buying nowadays in specialized chain stores, which are quite big ones and also allow you to get into the market in a quite simple way. But on the other hand, online also becomes popular and opens alternative opportunities to get into the market if you are not able to deal with a big distributor. Next slide. Yeah. And a couple of words about some which is bigger durable than KitchenAid things or a fridge. So basically, car market in Russia experienced some specific life stage. So basically, due to sanctions and restriction on selling for most of European and American cars, the market has declined in 2021 quite visibly. And another important component of this happening is related to distributor, which are trying to speculate on the situation and actually rose prices at least twice. Yeah, and as a consequence of these actions. Stop, wait a second. The top 5 brands we have nowadays in Russia are represented by local ones or Chinese, which are actively getting into the market, leveraging this brilliant opportunity, which will never happen again for sure. Okay, so now we can go next.
And few words about clothing, how we dress up ourselves. Also start with saying, good clothes open all doors. And that's something which Russians really trust in. And if you will look at Russian women, you will see that they are really more dressy and sometimes they look like dolls rather than other women in Western countries. And it is still true. And even during the COVID times, we saw that there were no cuts on buying new clothes, buying new items for yourself. And on the next chart, there is a chart, a big chart, which represents these trends. So we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. I can cover it, Stas, if you want to.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, you will see that still the numbers are growing. So for women's clothes, and even though a lot of brands have left the market, this need stays as it was, even for women, even for men, for all categories, including shoes. And let's go to the next slide.
So it points out a good opportunity for new brands, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on the next slide, there is a sad picture of brands who left the market. And although you can still find some of them, you still can find them in online. And there's reselling, parallel import, whatever you call it, but still it's not the habitual convenient way when you go and choose and feel the fiber, etc., etc. Indeed, opportunities are plenty, really plenty. And let's go to the next slide. Probably the only confusion which is happening in the minds right now is that indeed the reactions varied a lot and people's feelings varied a lot. First, there was frustration like, oh my God, how can I replace it? How would I replace, for example, children brands? Then, of course, acceptance. And now there is an interest in some other producers and some new brands. It's a possibility to open some possibilities. But what do people require from brands in this context? They really, speaking about clothes, they need very clear and convenient guidance on looks, because, for example, we have a lot of stylists who post on social media complete looks, guidebooks, how you can dress up yourself using those brands who left the market. But there is no more Zara, there is no more H&M, and you need to be able to provide these looks to complete them with a newcomers. So probably such guidance from brands themselves will be really very, very helpful. Second thing is quality reassurance. As online is the first channel and easiest channel probably, in this case you just don't want to be cheated up. You don't want to spend your money, and you want to really be assured that all the stitches will be good, all the fabric quality will be really good. And I think that's a great opportunity for Turkish brands, because indeed, speaking about Turkish textile, this is top of mind association probably. And wide assortment. Once again, people are missing it right now. They would love to widen it a little bit. We can skip to the next slide because it's speaking about the strategies. And as I said, they are polarizing. Some want to buy cheaper, to switch to economical options, but there is plenty of people who want to buy better. And also, as for example, these mass market brands, they were somehow associated with a non-durable quality, let's call it this way, not very trustworthy. Some brands and high quality brands are believed to perform longer, and in this case it would be a kind of good investment. Let's go to the next slide.
Yes,
once again, regarding the channels.
Yeah, and so the vast majority of sales still come through offline, because especially for clothes, it's really important to take the right size, take a look how it will, how I will look in this very suit, and so on. But still, we can observe that there is a new event, and a visible part of consumers started to buy clothes in online only. And besides, we have a lot of online stores which in a period of bans and sanctions and restrictions all of you to buy something which is not represented in chains or in branded stores now because they are closed. So you are going to online, checking a logo at your old brand clothes and ordering the same, knowing the size and so on. Okay.
I see a question about Shein, and as far as I remember, it was mentioned as one of the brands who left, and it was one of the losses which people were really feeling sorry about. So need to check, not sure right now.
Yeah. So, and to conclude with the topic of clothes and quality, expensiveness, and a desire to save money, and some sustainability, environmental trends, we can see that Russians start to buy fur clothes, which is more expensive, indeed less often, but still usage is quite visible and high. So yeah. Next slide.
Next slide, please. And we thought that furs would be a good link for sustainability, you know. Probably not, but still, let's cover it here. And speaking about sustainable development in Russia, first thing you should know is that the term itself is not really popular and not very well known among Russians. What is it? Is it for? It doesn't have a good translation into Russian. So people's perceptions are quite complicated and quite blurry, I would say. Not a lot of Russians sort waste, and it's also due to some, societal reasons, because as we said, there is a low trust in authorities, And actually, this belief in one's ability to make impact is very happening, is very common for Russians, unfortunately. There is a lot of skepticism regarding would it have any reason, would it have any impact, can I contribute to overall well-being? And there are a lot of things which are said regarding the business sector and healthcare and social sphere are corrupted, they are not open to significant change. So there is kind of there is a big buzz among the business, but it's not resonant at all among people. Only for Zoomers it becomes more important. They are quite open to those initiatives. They actively participate in some voluntary movements, so they can create some startups they can support and make something to be noticed and to really make a difference. And we can go here to the next slide. Few words about tourism. I think that, you know, one of the charts which we missed was that there was a trend to showcase yourself through buying new things. But right now there is a transition and people are moving from what I have to what I have done or what I have experienced. And acquiring new impressions is really very, very important right now, and more important sometimes than the possession of things. And vacation, as we said, is a source of quite great impressions, new experiences. You try to see new places, and that's why, although they're not traveling a lot abroad, and Stas, am I right that the numbers are really, really low?
Yes,
yes.
they're really low. So basically, slightly less than 10% of Russians are actually traveling abroad a year. So a lot of people, by the way, prefer to travel within the country. But still, if we try to convert this into the numbers, so it's something about from 10 to 12 millions of tourists a year. And the thing which we really like, especially during the course of today's presentation, is that the Turkey is the main and the key destinations of Russian tourists and the loved one. But today it's even more important because now it's not only a possibility to spend your vacation time, but Turkey also becomes some kind of hub if you are traveling to Europe or United States or whatever you want. So even more Russian will appear in Turkey. I'm not sure whether you are happy about it, but it's a fact.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you also. And Yasemin, following your last minute question about top of mind associations with Turkish brands and with we've collected some, but you know these don't rely a lot on these associations because they are collected
perhaps.
Yes, it's a cool perspective, of course, but still most associations are very positive. They are speaking about good quality, that they are good for kids, that they are high quality. Just few mentioned that maybe some fake, maybe some, but mostly it's about good quality of textile, as I said, variety assortment, very positive associations with Turkish Airlines, which provide really excellent service and which are trusted as one of the best among the available assortment. And as I said, a lot of people are really open to consider Turkish brands as an alternative and really eager to learn them more. And expectations regarding the price are quite positive also, that they shouldn't be overpriced. That should be affordable and approachable and providing everything which people really demanding right now. Fair price, good price, something like that.
Value for money.
Main dimension is, I guess, a bit more economic, more affordable. Good value for money, perhaps, kind of approach.
Yes, good value for money is the best approach, actually. Justifying all your spendings.
Yes. Okay. It was one of my important questions, I guess. If any more questions, I'm checking on the chat, but I don't see any. Sans replied some questions in between.
We will gladly share the presentation, answering once again the question in the chat. And should you have any other particular questions, we can follow up on them later also. We are open to do that. So please collect them and send back to us.
Yes, thank you very much. So after all those words, I see that there is an impact of the conflicts, of course, in your country and in your moods. Of course, it's inevitable, but in a way, the economic situation is not that bad and it's getting even better. The expectation is like that for the next year, I guess. And there is an opportunity for foreign brands, especially which are in contact with your country right now, such as Turkey, perhaps such as Chinese brands as well, and new corporations and new investments will be seen in upcoming years in your country.
Definitely. And you know, it's been kind of economical miracle that we didn't drop down into the inflation immediately like it was supposed, and because there was a like month period of total panic and total when prices were
like
really
complete
disaster. Still then they managed to keep it somehow. No one can predict for sure, we know. As I said, the horizon of planning is 15 minutes, but still in these 15 minutes, we really see a lot of possibilities and open to welcome them.
And actually, for the last 6 months, we are even experienced negative inflation, which have not happened in Russia ever. So it's really so strange.
Yes.
Full of paradoxes. Probably it's the main idea we would love to convey today.
Yeah, it is to be studied with economic guys, I guess, economists.
Yeah.
Okay. So no more questions, I guess, and we are done. We are up just on the time, despite all of these struggles with technology. And so we can close up this webinar session, I guess. Thank you very much for all your support, and thank you for all of our attendees for being here with us. I will be sharing the recordings and the presentation via some link with the attendees, and we'll be waiting for your questions anytime. Thank you very much.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye-bye.